When I left Vancouver 2 weeks ago, I thought the worst thing that could happen was losing my mother to a stroke. I was wrong. The real nightmare was waiting for me back home in Oakridge. It was nearly 9 p.m. when I pulled into the driveway, bone-tired from the hospital and the long drive. The house was dark, no porch light, no sound, not even the hum of the refrigerator. Evelyn, my wife, always kept the lights on when I was away. Always. I remember thinking, maybe she's asleep early. But then I heard it. A dull, rhythmic thumping coming from somewhere deep in the house. At first, I thought I imagined it until a faint voice followed. Weak. Trembling. My wife's voice. Harlan. Help me. That sound cut through me like a blade. I didn't know it then, but that night would destroy everything I believed about family, love, and trust. The moment I stepped inside, the air felt wrong, stale, cold, heavy with something I couldn't name. Our home was supposed to smell like coffee, lavender candles, and Evelyn's cooking. Instead, it reeked of dust and neglect. I dropped my keys on the counter and called out softly, Evelyn. No answer. The silence pressed in on me. The refrigerator wasn't humming. The clock on the wall had stopped ticking. It was like time itself had frozen while I was gone. Then came that sound again. Thump, thump, thump. It was faint, uneven, but deliberate. My heart jumped. I stood still, straining to hear. It was coming from below, from the basement. That didn't make sense. Evelyn never went down there. She was terrified of the basement stairs. Her doctor had warned me they were too dangerous with her Alzheimer's. My first thought was that someone had broken in. But then I heard it aga in a hoarse, trembling voice between the thumps. Harlan. Please. My blood ran cold. That was her. I rushed to the basement door and froze when I saw the padlock. It was thick, new, and bolted from the outside. I'd never seen it before. My hands shook as I grabbed the handle and pulled. Locked tight. Evelyn. I shouted, pounding on the door. It's me. It's Harlan. From the other side came a faint cry, half sob, half gasp. Help me, please. Panic surged through me. I tore through the hallway, into the garage, grabbing the first thing I could find, a crowbar coated in dust from years of disuse. I jammed it under the lock and pulled with everything I had. The metal screeched. The second yank cracked the latch. The third sent the padlock flying across the floor. The door creaked open. A wave of smell hit me: urine, mildew, sweat, and something sour. My stomach lurched. I flicked the light switch. The bulb flickered weakly to life. And there she was. Evelyn sat huddled at the bottom of the stairs, knees pulled to her chest, her nightgown torn and stained. Her hair was matted to her face, her skin ashen. She blinked against the light, eyes wide and unfocused. Harlan, she croaked, voice cracked and dry. Is that really you? I didn't remember dropping the crowbar. I just ran. Down the stairs, 2 at a time, nearly slipping. When I reached her, I fell to my knees and gathered her into my arms. She was trembling, weightless, her bones sharp under her skin. Oh, God, Evelyn, I whispered. I'm here. I've got you. She clutched at my shirt like a frightened child. Don't let her lock me up again, she whispered. Who? Who did this? Her cracked lips trembled. Jenny, she said it was for my own good. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. Jenny? I repeated. Our daughter? She nodded weakly, then went limp against my shoulder. I carried her upstairs, heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I laid her gently on the couch, covering her with a blanket. Her pulse fluttered under my fingers, too faint, too fast. I dialed 911, my voice shaking as I gave our address. The dispatcher's calm tone barely registered. My gaze drifted across the room, and that's when I noticed the furniture slightly moved, boxes stacked near the wall, Evelyn's pill organizer gone. It looked like someone had been rearranging our life while I was gone. And the realization hit me like a freight train. This wasn't random. It wasn't an accident. Someone had planned this. And if what Evelyn said was true, then our daughter, Celeste, was at the center of it. The sirens broke the silence 15 minutes later, flashing blue and red against the dark windows of our quiet street. I remember pacing near the doorway, my hands trembling so badly I dropped the phone twice before the paramedics arrived. Evelyn lay on the couch, her eyes half open, whispering fragments of words that didn't make sense, sometimes my name, sometimes our daughter's. "Hang on, sweetheart," I kept saying. "Help's coming. You're safe now." When the paramedics came in, their faces changed the second they saw her. One knelt beside Evelyn, checking her pulse, while the other unwrapped a thermal blanket and draped it over her fragile body. "She's severely dehydrated," the woman said. "How long has she been like this?" Don't know," I stammered. "I just found her down there. In the basement. She was locked in." The two paramedics exchanged a quick, uneasy glance. They didn't say anything, but I could read the look. This wasn't an accident. I followed them outside as they carried Evelyn to the ambulance. The night air felt sharp and cruel. I climbed inside and sat beside her, holding her hand. It was cold as marble. "Evelyn, listen to me," I whispered. "You're safe now. I won't let anyone hurt you again." Her lips moved weakly. "Jenny didn't mean to," she said. "It was for my own good." I couldn't speak. The words jammed in my throat like broken glass. At the hospital, everything blurred. Bright lights, quick voices, the squeak of wheels on tile. They rushed Evelyn into an examination room. I tried to follow, but a nurse stopped me gently. "Sir, please wait outside. We'll update you soon." I sank into a chair in the waiting area. My clothes smelled of mildew and fear. I sat there staring at my hands, noticing tiny smudges of grime from the basement still under my nails. 2 hours later, a doctor came out. "Mr. Drake?" "Yes," I said, jumping to my feet. "She's stable for now," he said. "Severe dehydration, malnutrition, and early signs of hypothermia." "You said she was locked in a basement?" I nodded, my mouth dry. "For how long, doctor?" He hesitated. "Judging by her condition, at least 10 to 14 days. 14 days. The number hit me like a blow to the chest. I'd been gone for exactly 2 weeks. That meant the moment I left town someone had locked her down there. I leaned against the wall, dizzy. "My daughter was staying with her," I managed to say. "Celeste. She promised to take care of her while I was gone." The doctor's eyes softened, but there was pity in his expression. "The police will need to be notified. I'll have a social worker contact you." I barely heard him. My mind was racing. Celeste. My only child. The same little girl who used to fall asleep on my chest while I read her bedtime stories. The same girl who cried the day she left for college. The one Evelyn and I had sacrificed everything for. Could she really have done this? Around 3 a.m., a uniformed officer appeared. "Mr. Drake? Detective Rowan Pierce from the Elder Abuse Task Force would like to speak with you." The words elder abuse made my stomach twist. When Detective Pierce arrived, she was calm, professional, mid-30s, sharp eyes that missed nothing. She introduced herself quietly, then sat across from me, notebook in hand. "I'm sorry to meet you under these circumstances, Mr. Drake," she said. Can you tell me exactly what happened tonight? So I told her everything. The dark house. The padlock. The smell. The crowbar. Evelyn's whisper, Jenny said she had to do it. Pierce listened without interrupting, her face unreadable. When I finished, she closed her notebook slowly. Mr. Drake, she said, voice firm but gentle, I know this is difficult to hear, but from what you've described, this is more than neglect. We're treating this as a criminal case, potential unlawful confinement and financial exploitation. Financial exploitation? I repeated. Yes, she said. When family members commit this kind of abuse, there's usually money involved. Money. The word echoed in my mind. I suddenly remembered the missing pill organizer, the rearranged furniture, the boxes stacked near the wall. Something in my gut told me this wasn't just about cruelty. It was about greed. Detective Pierce stood. We'll need access to your home first thing in the morning. Please try to get some rest tonight, Mr. Drake. Rest? That was impossible. I watched through the hospital window as the first traces of dawn touched the horizon, and a thought began to take shape, a thought that filled me with equal parts grief and fury. If Celeste had truly done this, I was going to find out why. And I was going to make sure she never did it again. By the time Detective Rowan Pierce arrived at my house the next morning, I hadn't slept a single minute. The police tape across the basement door was the only sign that the nightmare was real and not something my exhausted brain had made up. Detective Pierce walked through the front door, calm and methodical. She wasn't what I expected, young, sharp-eyed, with a quiet confidence that made the chaos around her seem temporary. She greeted me with a firm handshake. Mr. Drake, she said, scanning the living room, we'll need to do a thorough examination of the premises. Anything out of place, even something small, could matter. I nodded, barely able to speak. The team began photographing everything: the lock, the stairs, the filthy blanket Evelyn had used to keep warm. When one of the officers pulled out a small evidence bag, I caught a glimpse of the rusty padlock inside. I still couldn't believe it had been used on my own wife. Pierce turned to me. When was the last time you saw your daughter? 2 weeks ago, I said. The morning I left for Vancouver. She offered to stay here while I was gone. Said she'd take care of her mother. Did she have access to the house? Yes. She has her own key. And the finances? I frowned. What do you mean? Pierce made a note in her book. In many elder abuse cases, control over money is the motive. We'll need to check if there were any unusual withdrawals or transfers while you were away. The idea made my stomach tighten. Evelyn and I had one joint savings account, and I managed everything. But Celeste knew where we kept our files. She'd helped me organize paperwork once before. I brushed the thought acidite was too awful to imagine. Pierce moved through the kitchen, noting the half-empty cabinets, the missing pill organizer. Mr. Drake, were these cabinets like this when you left? No. Evelyn's medication was kept right there. I filled it before I left town. Then someone removed it, she said flatly. Her tone made it clear this wasn't speculation. It was evidence. I followed her into the dining room. The curtains were still drawn, and sunlight bled weakly through the edges. The table was covered with boxes I didn't recognize, shipping boxes, some half-opened, filled with random household items. Did you order these? She asked. I shook my head. No. Evelyn wouldn't even know how to use online shopping. Pierce crouched, examining a label. These were ordered 10 days ago. Delivered to this address. The name on the receipt says Celeste Moore. My throat went dry. She looked up at me. Mr. Drake, your daughter changed her last name after marriage, correct? Yes. Moore is her husband's name. Rowan Pierce's eyes narrowed slightly, the kind of look you see in people who are putting puzzle pieces together in real time. Then it's safe to assume your daughter was here at least 10 days ago, long after you left town. I sat down heavily on a chair. Everything around me seemed to close in. She was supposed to call me every day, I said quietly. For the first week, she did. Said Evelyn was fine. Then she stopped answering my calls. Sent a few texts, said she was busy with Mom. I believed her. Pierce's voice softened, but only slightly. That's how it often starts. Small lies that grow into something much darker. She asked permission to check Celeste's old room upstairs. I followed her reluctantly. The door was half open, the room strangely sterile, no clothes, no photos, just the faint smell of perfume and dust. But on the desk sat a laptop. A single, glowing light blinked on its side. Do you mind if we take a look? She asked. It's hers, I said. Go ahead. Pierce slid the laptop open. The screen came to life instantly. No password. I don't know whether that was luck or arrogance. What we saw next made the detective inhale sharply. The desktop was cluttered with folders, documents, financials, POA forms, investment plans. Pierce scrolled through the file names, her expression hardening by the second. Power of attorney, savings transfers, home equity line of credit, she read aloud. My pulse quickened. That's impossible. Evelyn can't even write her full name some days. Pierce looked at me with the kind of gravity that only comes from experience. Mr. Drake, I think your daughter forged legal documents while you were away. She might have taken control of your wife's finances. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. I just stood there, staring at that screen full of betrayal, trying to reconcile the sweet little girl who once held my hand on the walk to school with the woman who'd just stolen from her own mother and locked her away to cover it up. Pierce closed the laptop gently. We'll take this as evidence, she said. And Mr. Drake, you may want to prepare yourself. This looks much bigger than just neglect. I watched her leave the room, laptop tucked under her arm. The faint sound of the evidence bag sealing snapped me out of my daze. That was the moment the truth began to take shape, ugly, undeniable, and real. My daughter wasn't just careless. She was deliberate. Calculated. And I was just beginning to uncover how deep the betrayal went. That night, after Detective Pierce left, I sat alone in the living room staring at the space she'd just cleared of evidence. The house was still too still. Even the ticking of the wall clock sounded like a metronome counting down to something I wasn't ready to face. The police had taken the laptop, but before they sealed it as evidence, Pierce let me glance through a few of the open folders. Just enough, she said, so you'll understand what we're dealing with. I wish she hadn't. The first folder was labeled POA Evelyn Drake. Inside were scanned PDFs, legal documents, notarized, dated just 3 days after I'd left for Vancouver. My wife's signature was there, shaky and crooked, but recognizable. It looked real. The document granted full power of attorney to one person, Celeste Moore. My heart dropped. My Evelyn couldn't even follow a recipe anymore, let alone sign a binding legal agreement. I scrolled through the pages, my hands trembling. The notary's stamp looked legitimate, the witness signature neatly written. But the address? Some small office in Scarborough I'd never heard of. Not our family lawyer. Not anyone we'd ever used. I clicked the next folder, financial transfers. A spreadsheet opened, color-coded, professional, meticulous. Dates, amounts, bank names, routing numbers. My name and Evelyn's name were right there at the top of multiple transactions. $25,000. $30,000. $20,000. Over and over again, withdrawn, transferred, consolidated. $75,000 gone from our savings. I scrolled further and found a note at the bottom of the document, remaining funds secured. HELOC in process. HELOC. Home equity line of credit. No. No, no, no. I opened my online banking on my phone, praying it was all some mistake. The numbers told the truth. The account was drained. A new line of credit had been approved under Evelyn's name for another $100,000. Our house, the home we'd owned free and clear for 20 years, now had a lien against it. The total loss, $175,000. I felt sick. I kept digging. In another folder, Business Files, there was a PDF titled Thornhill Capital Management. I opened it. The logo looked slick, modern, too polished for a small operation. The CEO listed at the bottom was Nolan Moore, my son-in-law. The description made my skin crawl. A blockchain-based investment fund offering high-yield crypto opportunities for select clients. It was nonsense. Buzzwords. And the more I read, the clearer it became. Thornhill Capital was nothing but a shell company. But what broke me completely was the folder labeled Messages. I opened it and froze. It was a chat log between Celeste and Nolan. Celeste, she keeps crying for Dad. It's driving me insane. Nolan, did you give her the pills? Celeste, yes, but she's refusing to eat. Keeps asking why the lights are off. Nolan, then stop talking to her. She'll forget soon enough. Celeste, what if Dad calls? Nolan, don't answer. Text him. Say everything's fine. Celeste, you think he'll believe it? Nolan, he's with his mom. He won't suspect anything. We just need 2 weeks. Once the funds clear, we're gone. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. My throat went dry. Every letter felt like a knife carving into my chest. My daughter, my own flesh and blood, had locked her sick mother in a dark basement, starving and terrified, so she and her husband could rob us blind and run. I scrolled further down and saw one last message from Celeste that made my vision go white. Celeste, I hate hearing her beg. Just lock the door. She'll forget eventually. The confusion helps. The confusion helps. I slammed the laptop shut and nearly threw it across the room. The sound echoed through the empty house. For a long time, I just sat there, head in my hands, shaking uncontrollably. All those years. All those sacrifices. The late nights working double shifts so she could go to college. The house down payment. The wedding we paid for. The loan we helped them cover last year. And this was how she repaid us. When I finally lifted my head, my reflection stared back at me from the dark TV screen, hollow eyes, clenched jaw, the face of a man who just realized his family had been shattered from the inside. I called Detective Pierce immediately. She answered on the first ring. Mr. Drake? I found something, I said, my voice barely steady. You were right. This isn't just neglect. It's theft. Fraud. Abuse. All of it. Stay calm, she said. We'll send a team back tonight. Don't touch anything. But I wasn't calm. I couldn't be. Because I finally understood what kind of evil I was dealing with, not strangers, not scammers, but my own daughter and her husband. The people Evelyn trusted most. The people I loved most. And as I sat there in the glow of the laptop's darkened screen, one thought kept echoing in my mind. They hadn't just stolen our money. They had stolen my wife's safety, her dignity, and nearly her life. And I was going to make damn sure they paid for it. Detective Rowan Pierce didn't waste a second once she saw the messages on Celeste's laptop. Within hours, the house was crawling with investigators, gloves snapping, flashlights sweeping every corner like spotlights on a stage built for betrayal. I stood outside, leaning against the porch railing, numb. My phone buzzed in my pocket, another call from the hospital. Evelyn was stable, the nurse said. She was asking where Celeste was. I told her, softly, that Celeste was away. I couldn't say more. When Pierce came out of the house, she had a look that told me things were moving faster than I imagined. "We've got enough for warrants," she said. "Bank records, forged documents, digital evidence. It's solid. We'll issue arrest orders for Celeste Moore and Nolan Moore within the hour." I nodded, my voice gone. "What if they're gone already?" She hesitated. "We're checking that right now." The next few hours were a blur of phone calls, police radios, and the low hum of unmarked cars pulling away. I followed Pierce to her cruiser, gripping the folder she'd given me, copies of everything they'd found. Power of attorney forms. Bank transfers. Even a printed ticket confirmation email Celeste had sent to Nolan. It was dated yesterday. 2 one-way flights from Toronto to Lisbon, Portugal. Departure, tomorrow at 9:15 p.m. I felt my stomach drop. "Portugal," I whispered. "Why there?" Pierce replied flatly, "No extradition treaty for financial crimes. They planned this down to the hour." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The sound of cicadas outside seemed deafening. "They were going to let Evelyn die," I said quietly. "If I hadn't come home early, they'd have been halfway across the Atlantic by now." Pierce's expression hardened. "We're not letting that happen." That night, I barely slept. Every sound made me jump: a car door slamming, a dog barking down the street. I kept seeing Evelyn's face in the basement light, hearing her voice whisper, "Jenny said she had to do it." By morning, Pierce called. We located their condo in Liberty Village. "Meet me there if you can handle it." "I'll be there," I said. The condo complex was one of those sleek, glass-front towers that looked soulless even in daylight. When we arrived, 2 patrol cars were parked out front. An officer met Pierce at the entrance. "They're not here," he said grimly. "Neighbors say they moved out 2 days ago. Took everything." Pierce swore under her breath. "Search the unit." We stepped inside. The air was stale, as if the place had exhaled its last breath. Every drawer was empty. Closets bare. Even the refrigerator had been wiped clean. But it was the trash bin in the corner that changed everything. Pierce pulled out a stack of crumpled papers and laid them on the counter. I watched as she smoothed them flat with gloved hands. Bank statements. A copy of a lease agreement from a property management firm in Lisbon. And a printed email thread between Nolan and a broker titled "Relocation and Offshore Accounts." They hadn't just been running, they'd already moved most of the stolen money overseas. Pierce looked at me, her eyes sharp as steel. "We're alerting airport security. If they try to fly out, we'll have them." By nightfall, the alert went live. Their photos, Celeste with her perfect smile, Nolan with that arrogant smirk, flashed across every security terminal at Pearson International Airport. I didn't expect to get a call at 8:43 p.m. Pierce's voice came through the line, calm but electric. "We've got them. They're at the gate. Flight 274 to Lisbon. We're moving in." For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. I heard the rush of footsteps, the low rumble of voices through her phone. Then, faintly, "Police. Hands where we can see them." Silence followed. "They're in custody," she said finally. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed, my hands shaking. I should have felt relief, maybe triumph. But all I felt was hollow. "My daughter," I whispered. "You actually arrested my daughter." Pierce's tone softened. "She made her choices, Mr. Drake. You made yours to protect your wife. Don't confuse the two. Later that night, she called again from the station. They'll be charged first thing tomorrow morning. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, unlawful confinement, forgery, fraud. The list's long. I looked around our quiet house, the same house that used to ring with laughter, the same one Celeste had learned to walk in. Now it felt like a crime scene. Pierce paused, then said something I've never forgotten. You came home early, Mr. Drake. You saved her life. When the call ended, I just sat there in the dark, my hands clasped, staring at the family photo on the mantel, the three of us smiling on Evelyn's 60th birthday. I wondered if I'd ever be able to look at that picture again without feeling sick. Justice had begun, yes. But the wreckage it left behind, that was only beginning. The first time I saw Celeste after her arrest was in a courtroom. It was 10 days later. She shuffled in wearing an orange jumpsuit, her wrists bound in cuffs that clinked softly when she moved. For a moment, she looked smaller than I remembered, pale, frightened, nothing like the confident woman who once bragged about her new promotion and her condo downtown. But when her eyes met mine, I saw something that froze me. Not remorse. Not shame. Just defiance. She looked at me like I was the traitor. The courtroom was cold and smelled faintly of disinfectant. Reporters filled the benches behind me. This had become front-page news: daughter and husband charged with elder abuse, fraud, and unlawful confinement. Toronto loved a scandal that mixed family and money. Detective Rowan Pierce sat 2 rows behind me, her expression composed but watchful. When the Crown prosecutor walked in, Alicia Voss, a sharp woman in her 40s with eyes that could slice through glass, the room fell silent. Your Honor, she began, the defendants, Celeste Moore and Nolan Moore, stand charged with financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, unlawful confinement, fraud over $5,000, and forgery. The word sounded clinical, detached, but every syllable landed like a hammer blow. The defense lawyer argued for bail. My client, Mrs. Moore, has no criminal record, strong ties to the community, and poses no flight risk. Alicia Voss stood immediately. Your Honor, these defendants were apprehended at the airport with one-way tickets to Portugal and evidence of offshore accounts. Their flight risk is self-evident. She turned, gesturing toward me. The victim, Mr. Drake's wife, Evelyn, was found locked in a basement for 14 days, malnourished and near death. The defendants attempted to flee before discovery. We ask that bail be denied. Celeste's attorney tried to object, but the judge raised a hand. Enough. Bail denied. Both defendants will remain in custody pending trial. I didn't feel victory. I didn't feel anything at all. Celeste turned to look at me again. Her lips moved, barely audible. Dad, please. I stood up and walked out. Outside the courtroom, Detective Pierce caught up to me. You did the right thing by coming, she said. Sometimes the hardest justice is the kind closest to home. But it didn't feel like justice, it felt like grief. A week later, I met with Alicia Voss in her office to review the case. Her desk was stacked with files, evidence logs, transcripts, forensic accounting reports. Mr. Drake, she said, this is one of the most egregious cases of familial exploitation I've ever seen. The Crown will be seeking maximum sentencing, 12 years for your daughter, 15 for her husband. We're also pursuing restitution for the stolen funds. I nodded slowly, my throat tight. Will we get any of it back? Her face softened. We'll try. But most of the money's gone laundered through crypto accounts and overseas transfers. We'll file civil liens, but recovery will be difficult. I stared down at the photograph on her desk, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes. A daughter, maybe. Do you have kids, Ms. Voss? She hesitated. A son. He's 15. I managed a bitter smile. Then you understand why this hurts worse than the money ever could. The trial was scheduled for 6 months later, but the legal gears turned slowly. In the meantime, Evelyn's health declined. The doctors said trauma accelerates Alzheimer's, and they were right. Some mornings she woke up asking where Celeste was. Other days she didn't remember we had a daughter at all. I found myself rehearsing answers I'd never say aloud. She's gone. She did this to you. But I couldn't tell her. Not when the truth would only wound her again and again each time she forgot. When the trial finally came, Alicia called me to testify. I sat in the witness stand, palms sweating, as the defense lawyer asked if I'd possibly misunderstood Evelyn's condition. She's confused sometimes, he said. Is it possible she locked herself downstairs by accident? Before I could speak, Alicia rose. Objection. The basement was padlocked from the outside. With a brand new lock Mr. Drake had never seen before. The judge nodded. Sustained. The defense lawyer looked deflated. When my testimony ended, I caught Celeste watching me again, tears streaking her face. For a fleeting second, I thought I saw the child she once was, the little girl who built blanket forts and asked me to chase away monsters under her bed. Now she was the monster. And I couldn't save her. That night, as I left the courthouse, Alicia stopped me at the doors. We're close, Mr. Drake. With the evidence and the testimony, this will end the right way. I nodded. I don't want revenge, I said quietly. I just want it to matter. It will, she replied. Justice always does eventually. But standing under the gray Toronto sky, I wasn't sure I believed her. When the trial resumed after the first week, the atmosphere in the courtroom had shifted. The tension was thicker, sharper, like everyone could sense the end coming. I sat in the second row behind the prosecutor's table, hands clenched together, watching as Nolan Moore, my son-in-law, shuffled in wearing the same orange jumpsuit as Celeste. He wouldn't look at me. His lawyer had been whispering furiously to him all morning, and I could tell something was brewing. When the judge entered, the murmur in the gallery died instantly. Then Nolan's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client would like to change his plea. The room stirred. I looked at Detective Pierce, she gave a slight nod. Nolan's lawyer continued, Mr. Moore is prepared to plead guilty to all charges and cooperate fully with the Crown in exchange for a reduced sentence. Celeste turned sharply toward him, her face draining of color. You're lying, she hissed, but the bailiff's hand on her shoulder silenced her. It was happening, the betrayal of the betrayer. Alicia Voss rose calmly. The Crown accepts the plea, contingent on Mr. Moore's full testimony and cooperation. We recommend an 8-year sentence with parole eligibility after 5. The judge agreed, his gavel striking once, echoing like thunder through the chamber. I expected to feel satisfaction. Instead, I felt hollow. Nolan turned once as the guards led him away, eyes glassy and frightened. Maybe he regretted it. Maybe he didn't. Either way, the coward had just traded his wife's freedom for a lighter cell. Celeste sat frozen, hands trembling, her lips forming silent words. The next morning, the trial against Celeste began in full. Alicia opened with precision, every word a scalpel. She presented the timeline, the fake power of attorney, the bank transfers, and finally, the text messages between Celeste and Nolan. When the jury saw the line, "She'll forget the confusion helps," a ripple went through the courtroom. 2 jurors looked away. One woman in the front row wiped her eyes. Then came the video, the police body cam footage from the night they'd found Evelyn in the basement. The dim light, the bucket, the thin blanket, the padlock hanging from the outside. Even though I'd seen it all before, I still felt my throat close. Evelyn couldn't testify in person, her doctor said it would be too traumatic, but they played a short recorded statement. My wife sat in a hospital chair, her hands shaking as she tried to explain what she remembered. She said it was just for a little while, Evelyn whispered in the video. She said I had to stay down there until Dad came home. But the lights were off, and I couldn't find the door. Celeste buried her face in her hands. The defense tried to paint her as a victim of manipulation, claiming Nolan had coerced her, that she'd been mentally fragile and desperate. But Alicia tore through that argument like paper. Mrs. Moore, she said on cross-examination, you weren't confused, were you? You researched power of attorney laws, found a notary who wouldn't ask questions, opened offshore accounts, and purchased one-way tickets. That's not confusion. That's calculation. Celeste stammered. Two didn't mean for her to get hurt. Alicia stepped closer. You locked your mother in a basement without food or light for 2 weeks. What did you think would happen? Silence. Celeste broke down crying, but it wasn't the kind of crying that earned sympathy. It was messy, desperate, the sound of someone realizing too late that the truth had caught up to her. The jury took only 4 hours to deliberate. When they returned, the foreperson's voice was steady. On all counts guilty. 2 months later came the sentencing. I stood in the same seat I had during her childhood piano recitals, only now it was a courtroom, and my daughter was standing before a judge in shackles. Judge Ellison read the verdict slowly, her voice solemn. Celeste Moore, you exploited your mother's vulnerability for financial gain. You confined her in conditions unfit for any human being. You betrayed not only your family but every moral standard this court upholds. She paused, eyes softening briefly. This court finds no mitigating factors. The sentence is 12 years in federal prison. Celeste's knees buckled. She sobbed, whispering, Dad, I'm sorry, please. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. There was a time when I would have done anything to protect her. When I would have taken every punishment meant for her. But not anymore. Some sins are too deliberate for forgiveness. The bailiff took her by the arm and led her out. The sound of the chains faded, replaced by the low hum of the courtroom air conditioner. It was over. Or at least, the law said it was. When I stepped outside, Alicia Voss met me on the courthouse steps. 12 years, she said quietly. It's not everything, but it's something. I nodded, staring out at the gray sky. Justice isn't everything, I said. But it's a start. She put a hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing, Mr. Drake. I wasn't sure. All I knew was that the person I'd raised as my daughter no longer existed. She'd been replaced by someone I no longer recognized, someone I'd helped put behind bars. And that truth would haunt me far longer than 12 years ever could. It's strange how quiet life becomes after a storm. The reporters stopped calling. The police stopped visiting. Even the neighbors, who once avoided eye contact, now wave politely again when I step outside to get the mail. The world moved on, as it always does. But for me, time feels slower, like I'm living inside an echo. It's been 6 months since Celeste's sentencing. I still catch myself expecting her name to pop up on my phone, the way it used to when she'd text me about dinner plans or call for advice about her taxes. Now, her voice only exists in memories I'd rather forget. Evelyn doesn't ask about her anymore. Not because she's made peace with it, but because she no longer remembers. The doctors warned me that stress would accelerate her Alzheimer's, and they were right. These days, she wakes up in a world she doesn't recognize. Sometimes, she looks at me with those soft, cloudy eyes and asks, "Who are you?" The first time it happened, I smiled and said, "Just someone who loves you." Now I just hold her hand and let the question drift away. Her memory comes and goes like the tide. Some mornings, she hums old songs from when Celeste was little, sweet, haunting melodies that fill the kitchen with a kind of ghostly comfort. Other times, she stares out the window for hours, lost somewhere I can't follow. We refinanced the house to cover the medical bills and the new caregiver's salary. For the first time in 20 years, I have mortgage payments again. It feels strange, like moving backward in life. Still, I'd sell everything before letting Evelyn end up in some sterile facility surrounded by strangers. Money can be replaced. Time cannot. Every once in a while, I get updates from the prison. Celeste is serving her sentence at Grand Valley Institution for Women, about an hour's drive west. She's eligible for parole in 8 years. The letters come occasionally short, awkward, full of apologies that feel too carefully written to be real. I read them once, then fold them away in a drawer. I haven't replied. I don't know if I ever will. Nolan is at a medium-security prison near Kingston. I heard he's trying to cooperate with financial investigators, but that doesn't matter to me. His remorse, real or not, changes nothing. The stolen money is gone, vanished into fake investments and crypto transactions scattered across borders. The court ordered restitution, but I know I'll never see a cent. That part doesn't even hurt anymore. What I grieve isn't the money. It's what it cost to learn the truth. Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I walk down to the basement. The new door is stronger, with a digital lock I installed myself. The smell of mildew is gone, replaced by the faint scent of fresh paint. But I can still see the bucket in the corner, the torn blanket, the scratches on the wall where Evelyn must have tried to claw her way out. 14 days. That's how long my wife was down there. 14 days that broke her mind, broke my trust, and destroyed the only child we ever had. I think about forgiveness sometimes. People tell me it's healthy, that it's part of healing. But forgiveness feels like permission. And what Celeste did doesn't deserve that. Justice, it has weight. It has meaning. When the judge read 12 years, I thought it would bring peace. It didn't. But it brought something else, accountability. And maybe that's enough. Last month, Evelyn forgot my name for the first time. She looked at me, really looked, and asked, "Are you my doctor?" I smiled and said, "No, sweetheart. I'm your husband." An hour later, she remembered. She reached for my hand, her voice soft and sure. "Oh, Harlan," she whispered. "You came home." I squeezed her fingers and nodded. "I'll always come home." That night, after she fell asleep, I stood by the window and watched the city lights flicker in the distance. I thought about Celeste in her cell, counting down the years. I thought about Evelyn, sleeping peacefully upstairs. And I realized something I wish I'd known sooner. Justice isn't revenge. It's the voice that says, "You can't do this," and walk away. Family is supposed to be sacred. When you break that bond, something inside you dies long before the sentence begins. Evelyn and I are still here, still fighting, still together. That's more than Celeste wanted for us. And maybe, in its own quiet way, that's justice too.